This is FD Talks, a brand new podcast series by Funeral Directors Live, where we explore ideas, insights, and solutions for serving families in a rapidly changing marketplace. Well, hello and welcome to another episode of FD Talks. Today, I've got Jason Gazaille here in the studio with me, and I was going to talk to Jason a little bit about what he does. Jason, thanks for coming in.
Thank you, Rob. Appreciate you having me.
So, kind of let us know who you are and what you do.
Sure. I'm Jason Gazaille, Vice President of Finance, and I've been with the company for about 6.5 years now. In charge of mortgage lending. I'm in charge of our Directors Business Solutions division, which provides accounting services and other financial services to funeral homes.
So, Jason, what are you guys working on? What's new? What's new and improved?
Yeah, so right now, I would say that the biggest thing that we have improved over the course of really 2020 and into 2021 is the way that we provide data to funeral homes, and we've kind of learned a few things in the last 6.5 years that allowed us to be able to improve upon that delivery. We've realized that, more than anything, the relationship that we have with our accounting clients specifically is extremely important, and delivering information to them in a way that they can understand is imperative. And it's pretty unique, actually, in the industry right now.
Can you tell me a little bit about what kind of prompted you guys to start doing this?
Yeah, so, we've been making mortgage loans to funeral homes for about 20 years now. And when I came, and this is an obstacle that we've always faced, but when I came, I got real nervous because I in our lending, in our loan portfolio, we require financials from our clients on a consistent basis, usually 2 times a year. And we ran into a point where we just couldn't collect that data. The funeral homes couldn't get it to us. So we spent a little bit of time talking and researching as to why with our clients we weren't getting that data. A few of our loan clients gave us authorization to talk to their accountants, and we realized that the holdup is typically at the accountant level. So once the funeral home has already accounted for their funeral home during the year, or bookkeeped, for their funeral home during the year, once they deliver that data to the CPA or the accountant, it's getting held up there, which means, they've got to file extensions and gain interest and penalties based on that extension. So that really prompted us. Also, just the notion that we wanted to, as a company, become the thought leader in the industry, or at least to contribute to that. And I think that you can kind of see that throughout all of our companies. There's a problem, and we've solved it with, a service or a solution. And so it was kind of the perfect storm. DBS was the thought of DBS was born at that point, and then we worked for about a year to develop the process and produce a pretty slick product.
So I guess I'm kind of curious to know how common is that? How common is it for funeral homes to have trouble getting financials?
Yeah, it's really common. I mean, I would say that, at that time we had about an $80 million loan portfolio. And we, that was probably a mix of about 50 different borrowers. And we did not even have a quarter of what we needed at that point by the deadline date. It was consistently the same story every single time. And usually the larger funeral homes who had, maybe a whole accounting staff to rely on and that kind of thing could get that data to us. But the more, 400, 300, 200, 100 call funeral homes just struggled with providing that data.
Interesting. So who do you find typically is the customer, the funeral home customer who most needs that kind of reporting?
Yeah. And again, it's going to be, there's a sweet spot there. Those funeral homes who maybe have a bookkeeper on staff who has limited accounting knowledge, funeral homes who, do 100 to 400 to 500 calls typically. We do have some clients that are larger than that. But yeah, I mean, the funeral homes who historically struggle with maybe keeping or maintaining staff that bookkeep or have those responsibilities, that's been kind of our target and our sweet spot. You think about what a funeral home typically gets out of their accounting process, and usually that's just a tax return at the end of the year. The CPA is really not involved in the month-to-month functions of the accounting process. until at the very end of the year it's time to file a tax return, and then the funeral home sends that information off to them and they provide a tax return. For a funeral home to be able to, on a monthly basis, complete a balance sheet income statement is pretty rare from what we've seen.
What in your experience, how does that make the funeral home, how does that make your clients feel? I mean, just not necessarily your clients, but just a funeral home who isn't getting those financials all the time, who is kind of slipping behind as far as their any of their financial reporting goes, especially in today's climate, where finances are so critical.
It's, a couple key words is probably frustration. The other one is, kind of being blind to what's really happening in the funeral home. And that came out as we did that research. We collected data from our funeral homes to kind of determine if this was something that was feasible for us to do and provide. But just frustration. And, at the same time, there's financial impact. There's real financial impact. In fact, if you file an extension, there's going to be interest and penalties and that kind of thing. But there's also, how do you make a good, solid business decision without knowing where you're at in a real time, format, basically. And so that's scary. It's scary.
So let's contrast that with how you think it ought to be. Like when you decided, when DBS was formed, there was an ideal situation I think you were striving for. What was that ideal?
Right. So much like everything that we do, first of all, that partnership. It's developing the partnership with the client and making sure that they understand that they can come to us with any questions or problems they have. So that was number one in an idyllic situation, right? We develop that relationship. We build that trust between our staff and their staff. But secondly, it's providing the funeral home owner the information that they need that they have never had access to before on a consistent and routine basis. So that's kind of twofold benefit here. The first benefit is at the end of the year, they don't have to worry about a delay in tax returns and filing extensions and being late. But secondly, it gives them not only, the financial statements, but it also gives them analytics as to the performance of their funeral home. And that's something that we learned too in the last, 2 years or so, because, funeral home owners did not go to mortuary school to one day account for a funeral home. They didn't go to school to one day market for a funeral home. Those are things that are very, very important to a funeral home, but take away time from the owner or the directors where they could be spending that with a family or their family or out in the community. And so in the last 2 years, we have redesigned our reports because we understand that they're not an accountant. Maybe they don't understand what a balance sheet and income statement is or what information they need to extrapolate from those reports to be able to make solid decisions. And so we've gone back to the drawing board, and now our monthly reports are typically anywhere from 15 to 16 pages, but it delivers information to the end user, which is typically the owner, in funeral language, if you will. It's not income and net income and your accounts receivable on your balance sheet. It's not that. It's let's explode these different categories that you should be focused on as a funeral home owner and dive into those and visually show you how you're performing.
That's interesting you say that because so many of the things that I know that we do here as a company on the whole are funeral home centric. I mean, like we do tons of different services that we have expertise in,
right?
But to have that expertise applied in a funeral home situation, that takes I think a little bit extra skill.
Yeah, for sure it does. And it takes there's a little bit of learning curve if you're not from the industry. I mean, I started 6.5 years ago, new to the industry. But analyzing loans was something that I was doing. So I was getting very familiar with funeral home financials and what to look for. Obviously, through education and through the company, you really kind of drink from a fire hose, but you really quickly understand what you need to be looking for in a funeral home's financials. And then so the funeral home's financials are a product of the performance of the funeral home. And so learning what's important for a funeral home, what analytics they should be looking at on a monthly basis is is something that we spent some time doing, and I think it's paying off for us right now.
Now, I guess I got to ask the question too. Is this something that you do only for your mortgage clients?
So no, it's not. It originated from our mortgage loan portfolio. Really, the idea did, but this is available to any funeral home that also uses the Passari platform. And so, for us to be one thing that we built this service around was Passari, and the reason that we did that is because it allows us to be very efficient and to stay on top of our deliveries, which is typically we want to deliver financials by the second week of the following month.
Wow.
So February financials are delivered by March 15th. So it allows us to stay efficient when they're using Passari, but it also, imagine, with those with experience with Passari, there are thousands of fields to be able to report on, and so much data. It's kind of like a gold mine to us because we can extrapolate that data, bring it out of the system, and provide it in our reports, and it really makes for a cool experience.
Why is it important for funeral directors and funeral home owners to be aware of their financial situation on a constant basis?
Yeah. So I'm going to use an analogy here, if that's okay, Rob. I hope you don't mind. But what I've spent some time thinking about this, obviously, as we grow this business and what value do we provide. And I'm a little bit of an aviation fan. So what I liken it to is I'm a pilot, okay, and I'm not really a real pilot. But if I were a pilot and I had an airplane in front of me, a very simple airplane, and I had an engine and a propeller and a way to control the airplane, then I could get this airplane in the air and I could potentially land it too without any instrumentation or anything like that. But we know that through technology and through research and development for the safety of the passengers and the pilot, it's very important to have an instrumentation panel, where you can tell what your airspeed is or how high you are in the sky, or if you're flying level. I feel like Directors of Business Solutions Accounting Services is that instrumentation panel. It's something that a funeral home can be successful without a really solid accounting platform in place, but the chances to be able to achieve that are fairly small. Now, if you've got all the tools, all the analytics in place, all of the instrumentation in place, then your chances for not only being able to maintain and stay open, but grow your business and make important financial decisions that impact you as the owner, impact your employees and the families that you serve, you've got to have something to be able to reference in real time, right? And so that's our number one. Above all else, we provide that information on a timely basis every single month. That way, if something comes up, then that funeral home owner can rely on us to be confident that they've made the right decision.
What have you learned in this process through the experience of helping customers in this area? What are some of the results that you've seen, some success stories?
Yeah, we've got a bunch of them. We have had clients who hadn't had a tax return filed in 2 years.
Wow.
And we hop in to try to fix, the problems that they've had in the past, and we've done that multiple times. One of our greatest success stories, I would say, though, is an operation who was pen and paper. They had no technology behind really anything they did, and they were also having issues with staying on top of their payroll taxes. And as you know, the IRS is a scary entity sometimes if you're on the wrong side. And over the course of 2 years, with a strategy in place, with us knowing that we need to bring some technology into their funeral home on an accounting level, which also helped them at the at-need level and the pre-need level. So that was phase one. Phase two is getting them financials on a monthly basis where they weren't getting them maybe for 1 to 1.5 years at a time. So improving that, but then also attacking and building a solution and a strategy around how do we get caught up here. And over 2.5 years we did that, and that was one of our first clients that we ever onboarded. But it was a major success, and now they're living stress free. Because we're providing that data, they're caught up. We're providing the data to them, and they're very successful now. So, that's something that's important to us is, every funeral home's needs are different, right? I mean, yes, it's helping families with the loved ones passing and that kind of thing, but there are goals and there are issues that need to be tackled individually between all of our clients, and it's recognizing what those are, and helping that funeral home owner see that, hey, here's the plan and here's how we're going to fix this.
The situation that you described to me, I have a feeling is prevalent. I mean, I think that probably happens a lot, not just in funeral service, but I mean, I ran a business for a while, and I know how harrowing payroll taxes can be. That was probably one of the most stressful things when I switched from 1099 to putting my employees on payroll and myself on payroll too. But just what advice are you giving to people who are thinking about possibly outsourcing their accounting because it is too much to handle?
Yeah, it's a good question. So the advice that I give is that, the benefit to having real-time data. You've got, what we have is we've got, let me rephrase this. It's not impossible for a funeral home to produce accurate bookkeeping and accurate accounting to be able to produce a financial statement. It's not impossible, but it's not the best use of their time, right? And so what we do is we partner with a funeral home. If they've got a bookkeeping staff in place, then we work with them, not against them, or not. Our intention is not to replace them, but we work with them. And some funeral homes don't have that in place, and so we are their bookkeeping or accounting department. But the advice that I would give is to make sure that you've got appropriate processes in place to be able to accurately account for your funeral home. And if you can't achieve that or don't have the knowledge or expertise to do that, which the majority of the funeral homes that we've worked with don't, then hire someone to do it. And we prefer that to be Directors Business Solutions because we feel like we have a great accounting product and service. But the importance thereof of the accounting at a funeral home or any business, as you mentioned, any business is imperative because it can make or break the organization itself.
What can a funeral home expect success to look like?
Yeah, so during the prospecting period, or say a funeral home is signed up, that's one of the questions that I ask. In a year, what if we were successful? What does that feel like to you? And again, I think the number one thing is to provide clarity, right? So if a funeral home owner says in a year's time that they have clarity in their accounting and they've learned what to look for, and we're providing the data to them that they just need to read and digest, then we've been successful. And then going back to that partnership, a lot of our clients, it's funny, you can kind of, every one of them's the same. It's you have this relationship up front that's more of, okay, let's get caught up, let's get you on track. That evolves over time into us being relied upon to make some of their decisions with them. So can I afford to hire this person, or can I afford to go out and buy this car, and what's the consequence or benefit of that? Should I finance it or pay cash or rent for it, or lease it? Those are some of the things that we're relied upon now, and so that relationship is key, and it evolves over time, and it becomes very, very strong.
Well, Jason, I don't mind telling you, accounting has never been my thing, but I think that in the spirit of what you've told me, I think I understand a little bit more than I did before, and I think that's kind of how you want to be able to communicate with your clients in the future, is to present information to them in a way that they understand. And I'm glad you came on the show today. I thank you for being here.
I appreciate you, Rob, very, very much. And we're looking to grow. We're looking to continue our success and helping funeral homes continue theirs as well. And we'd love to chat with anyone who's in need.
If you would like to reach out to us about this episode or this series, please visit us online at funeraldirectorslife.com/FD Talks. There you can find information about this episode and submit any comments, suggestions, or feedback about our series. And we also welcome your ideas for future episodes. Join us next time on FD Talks as we explore ideas, insights, and solutions for serving families in a rapidly changing marketplace.